You're on the internet. Mm. We'll bring the other on shortly. Hello, everybody. Bob had a facelift. Didn't help much. This is Jim Slusher. We're going to wait till Channel 12 brings us on. So we'll be talking about a few things. Jim here's interested in something. I'm not sure. It's something about taxes.
I love them, don't you?
I do too. I think everybody ought to pay more, except me. We've got a new engineer, so I don't know how long he'll be with it. When he comes in here and does these things, we'll go on the other channel. Then I'll do a couple of commercials, and you can make your speech, and then we'll talk some, and I'll do 2 or 3 more commercials, and we'll talk some more, and then we'll.
Okay.
I'll get
You
it
guys
moving.
ready?
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Playing your opening now.
That's the good part.
I'll give you a countdown when it's ready to go off.
Okay. Good enough. I'll be getting my makeup straightened out. Did you have any trouble back in the green room?
You got a green room?
Why, I'm sure they do.
You can enlarge.
We gotta have a green room. Where'd you tell me you taught? You were
Fort
professor.
Myers. No, well, I never taught there.
I know. I said you were administrator or
President.
president. Did you ever use your executive privilege for anything?
The answer to that is yes.
Okay, well that's good. You didn't answer any questions, did you?
No, that's my executive privilege.
Yeah. I've always wanted to be president of something, so I could exert an executive privilege, but unfortunately, I've never made the grade. How long you lived in Campbell County?
I've been back since 2005, and I left for 30 years to make my living because I couldn't find anything here, and but I was raised in Anderson County, just across the line, so I call this home.
I live in holler distance of Anderson County. I'm 4 miles north down by water, about 2 by land, about 2 by Crow, and 35 by road.
Yep.
Crows won't hardly give you a ride anymore.
Well, they used to.
Yeah, but people got so fat and overweight.
Well, they got tired of being
But
shot
all
at.
they busy grabbing them New Yorkers now. Don't get drunk on them big dopes. They trimmed down so much birds carry them off.
In three, two.
Hello, everybody. Uh, I just we've been on the internet a little while, and I explained about Bob having his facelift and his hair transplant, and I think he's much improved. He looks just like Jim Slusher.
Identical.
Yep. I don't know whether he's as smart as Jim Slusher, but this is Jim Slusher, and I'm Ronnie, and
Hello.
We're going to do a little talking here about Jim's favorite topic in a few minutes, which probably has something to do with taxes. And I think we both got some ideas about that, but I'm going to do a couple of commercials for my favoriteest people. One of them is Dixie Concrete. You know all about Dixie Concrete. Hardest concrete known to man. Down there they got them there retaining blocks that you can build you a Ford out of so you can get hid away. They'll stop Ford trucks when they run away. I can testify to that. They've got anything you need to do with the septic system. If you need to put in a septic tank and all that field line stuff, they got that. And they've got that secret recipe for concrete that there's no match for. So remember Dixie Concrete, when you need a new driveway or a pair of steps, they don't build them, but they'll pour them for you. And let's see, by footer, basement wall, basement floor, they got it all. And Rainbow Restaurant, right down there above the much improved speed hump dip, hump dip, hump dip, but just kind of a wiggle now instead of a chug chug. They got that breakfast special going. They still got a 99-cent bologna biscuit. You can't beat their food, their prices, or their service, and they appreciate your business. What's on your mind, Mr. Jim?
Well, as you might know, I've made myself very unfavorite to the county commission.
I've noticed they'll be limiting you to 2 minutes instead of 5, like some
And
people.
probably the county mayor throw it in. But I've been pretty upset about what they're proposing on property taxes and probably a few other things too. And we'll start wherever you want to.
Well, I had a little information from a, somebody told me one of the tax commissioners, it's the same thing, one of the county commissioners said, well, how do you expect us to run this place without money, without taxes? So I just kind of sat down and made a list of the ways that they could run this without, first thing they could do is not build a $1 million plus excitement park out yonder, which just got a new sidewalk, by the way. They could not build a new school office building. They could not build 3 jails when 2's enough. And since they did have a jail that they weren't using, maybe they could have locked up the voting machines in it and not had to build another structure just to house the voting machines. Maybe we could have done without that raise that we gave the financial officer and school superintendent, whatever you call him. Maybe we could have done without that for a little while. Maybe we could eliminate some of these things that requires a maintenance of effort in the school system. Maybe we could have done all that. And maybe we could have managed to get by without another tax increase, you reckon?
I know we could have, and I can add a few things
Well,
too.
just add right ahead there.
At the last minute, on the mayor's recommendation, there was an incubator put in called a business incubator. I always thought an incubator was in a hospital, and they probably borrowed one from there. But what it's supposed to do is take ideas that somebody has for a business and throw it in that incubator and grow a business out of it. In other words, give them advice. Now, I've been familiar with these types of things. It's never been called an incubator. But what happens is we have an agency that's part of the federal government called the Small Business Administration. And they do these things for free. And they'll come in and work out a business plan for somebody wanting to start a business. They'll even set them up with some kind of financing if it's a reasonable request, and kind of give them assurance that this business is going to go. But Campbell County has decided they're going to go on their own.
Well, they got a grant for that, which don't count because it's really not tax money.
No.
It's somebody else's tax money.
But I think at the last county commission meeting, they voted to buy an office.
Rent
An office. I don't even remember the exact amount, but I think it was around $2,700 or something. A month.
Base.
Knowing that very shortly we're going to be.
With a 3-year contract.
And a 3-year contract, and knowing very shortly that we're going to be vacating a courthouse when we move people over to the monstrosity called the Justice Center.
That would have probably been a good storage place for them voting machines too.
Yeah. But that disturbs me because what they're going to be, proposing, it has to be small businesses. And I look at Clinton, what they've done, and they don't concentrate in Clinton on small businesses. Small businesses are essential, but they go after the big time. And if you look at Clinton and what they have just across the border from us, it is amazing. And I can't figure out why we aren't spending our efforts in order to bring those types of businesses to Campbell County.
Well, I can remember a time when my father actually had more industry than Clinton.
My dad told me at one time there was more millionaires in La Follette than most of the rest of Tennessee.
Well, I don't know about that. I didn't
And
know any
it
of them
was,
people.
at
We
one
growed up there.
time,
but-
at one time, this was a very, very rich area, and it was industrious and prosperous. But now you look, and you don't see much except restaurants and along the strip. I did a little investigation about, I've been back since 2005, and I did a little investigation. We've lost, according to my count, and there may be more, 4 major industries here. We lost Mueller Gas, we lost Metal Parts Products, we lost Norris Yachts, and we lost Packard. You know, the mayor said it came as a total surprise to him that we lost Packard. Yet I knew about it a month to 2 months in advance because I picked it up on the street and through a rumor. That
Well, you have to
bothers
get
me.
out on the street and mix with the plebeians, you know.
You keep your ear to the ground. Any smart politician keeps their ear to the ground. And if I can keep my ear to the ground without pay and him being paid, I'm sure he can do
Let me
that.
tell you something else. There's 2 fools got a television show. Everybody laughs at him and makes fun of him. One of them, he's bald-headed and ain't got a bit of sense. And the other one's real good looking, but he ain't too smart. They was talking about that there business incubator back when it first come out, and they said, you know, they getting $200-something. It'll end up costing the county from now on because here's what them fools said. They said they'll take that original money and they'll spend it on offices and equipment and help, brother-in-laws and all them, you know. And then the county will have to fund that incubator forever, and we'll end up paying on that. And them fools, I believe they got it right.
I believe they got it right on the target because I think the mayor said right now they're meeting in McDonald's. Well, I hardly think they'd be discussing business in McDonald's as important as
And you
that is.
telling me there ain't a thing down there nowhere? How about all these empty school buildings? They even use that there Campbell County High School for a church on the weekend, don't they?
They certainly do.
There's nothing wrong with that, but couldn't they
It's
find
good.
an office there somewhere?
I could,
They could probably have kind of scattered out the school department there too.
but that's something that we complain about taxes, and industry pays their fair share. We don't have enough industry to pay their fair share, yet we have a government that's bloated, and all that cost passes to the citizens. I'm going to tell you a story, and it may be out of line, but I have a friend that lives up on Pinecrest. And I stopped to see him the other day to tell him that they're going to raise their taxes 16.5%. And it's sad what I heard. He told me that he had just bought part of his farm back that had gone for taxes. And it was agricultural farm, which was reduced by 40%.
Mhm.
So, he pays a lesser rate than we do. He bought it back on the courthouse steps, and the way he was able to do that, he borrowed money from his brother, and I think 2 or 3 other people, went down to the courthouse and bought it back. In the meantime, he had to quit his job because he is very, very ill, and I'll personally testify for that. And he simply cannot work. He's applied for disability. He hasn't gotten it yet. And he told me that if they did that, he didn't think he could borrow the money to pay it out again. Now that's enough to bring tears to your eyes.
Well, when you're spending somebody else's money, you hardly ever economize, and I think that's what we've got is a committee, which nobody blames, and it takes blame for anything. When you've got a committee making a decision, they can do a lot of things that they wouldn't do individually. So they've got that shielding, and they're not worried about economizing because all they got to do is send for more money, and that's what they've done consistently. how are we gonna change it?
Well, one thing I'd like to do, the budget's coming up for approval in September.
Mhm.
And as you know, some of us are kind of taking the bull by the horn, but we need support.
My prediction is, and the same thing's fixing to happen in the city. I've said this, and I'm gonna say the whole thing, but I've said if you could get 500 people down there at Jacksboro, we wouldn't have a tax increase. And if you could get 250 down at City Hall, we wouldn't have a tax increase. But you can't get people to go. You can get them to talk about it, but you can't get them to go.
Well, they're gonna hit the roof when they get their their tax
And
increase.
it's too late then.
And it's too late. And
Why don't we have an Occupy Jacksboro group down there, maybe camp out for about a week?
I'd like to see them spread out of Jacksboro all the way to La Follette, because this is serious. We're talking about the highest tax increase, 16.5%, in the history of this county.
Well, I'm serious too. Why don't we have an Occupy Jacksboro
I
group?
agree with you. We have just, and we're still in the middle of it. I listened to the news today, and it's predicted that this recession's gonna go on for at least 3 more years, and that the unemployment rate is not gonna drop below 8%.
Yeah.
Yet we have a government, a county government, commissioners and a mayor that has not cut one thing, not one thing out of that budget.
No, and talk about pay raises, and I'm all for pay raises when you can afford it. But when nobody's getting a raise except government employees or government funded groups, then you get to wondering what's wrong with this thing.
Well, that's the problem, Ronnie. This 16.5% does not include any pay increase.
I know that.
We're talking about next year.
When the jail comes due.
And the jail comes due. And Mr. Marlowe said in the commission meeting, in the answer to a question, we won't need any extra money for that jail. What about utilities? What about guards? What about the additional food you're going to take in? Because you're going to have to quit releasing misdemeanor cases. They'll hold them instead of releasing them.
Mm-hmm.
And that concerns me. I figure that jail is going to cost this county $500,000 plus. I may be totally wrong, but if I'm wrong, it's going to be more.
I believe that's right. You used to be saying that's a conservative estimate.
I think it's very conservative. Now, I say the county hasn't cut anything except they've cut their favorite whipping boy, and that's Mr. Dennis Potter, who hasn't been given a fair shake since he's been in office, and probably the best road superintendent in the state of Tennessee. Of course, that's my opinion. But he's cut 9 positions out of his office. Asphalt has tripled since he's gone in office. He cut the 9 positions so it would have more asphalt, and he's been turned down on his budget increase every year. And if they went in and streamlined the government, they'd have enough to give him the $1 million he's asking
Well,
for.
you know that the school department will receive less state funding because we have had a decreased enrollment. And generally, when you do less business, you cut back on your business structure, lay off a few employees. That's what a school is. It's a business, and there you have less patrons, and you should have less service. But I don't think they're going to do that.
I agree with you, but I come back to a very basic question, even beyond that. Why are we losing students? Why?
They can't make a living here. Mom and Dad has to go somewhere and get a job.
I know numerous students that are going across the county line to Anderson County.
Well, yeah, you've got that too.
My wife taught in Claiborne County, and one year she had a student whose mother was a teacher in Campbell County.
Well,
now that's the state of affairs the school system has gotten into, and now they're screaming for more money to continue to do the job that they're doing, which to me needs a lot of work.
when I was first quarter junior at UT, I had a girl who was a freshman in my math class who had gone to school at Oak Ridge City School. That was in 1969. Now, I understand why Oak Ridge had such better schools in than we did here. I understand that. There was more money there then. But we ought to be doing a little more catching up. My whole point is, I spent 2 years in college just to get where she was at when she graduated from high school in some subjects. It wasn't that way in all of them.
I know one lady that told me she was the valedictorian of her class at Campbell County High School. When she went to UT, she was so far behind the other students that had come there that she had to take remedial classes in order to come up to college level.
Mhm.
There's something wrong.
Well, I believe that.
You know, on another subject, I'd like to speak about the county commission.
We'll just go right ahead.
Anybody that's been to a county commission meeting, and since they put a muzzle on the citizens and taken away their right of free speech to talk to the commission, the commission, unfortunately, has become a rubber stamp for the school board. We've got 7 members out of 15 that have a direct conflict of interest. Either their wife is a principal, either they work for the school board, either they may have a contract with the school board,
Sometimes 2 or 3 dips in the same pie.
it's 2 or 3 dips in the same pie, and that generates, or they're a personal employee of their own. That, to me, is wrong.
I think so too.
So you bring up anything that's got anything to do with the school or even remotely relates to the school, with only 8 other school board members there, they need 1 swing vote.
Do you count the ones that are retired from school?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wondered.
But, you know, at the next election, we ought to examine the background of the commissioners.
We're gonna take a quick call and then do a commercial. Then Mr. Slusher, when he catches his breath, he's gonna give us some more information. While Bob's gone, this is Doug TV.
Hello, TV, Hazel Valley here.
Hello, Hazel Valley.
Hey,
Yeah.
that school system is absolutely, they paid Jeff Morrow a huge kickback to get their way with his office, and all those embezzled funds that Martin and Bunder and all that, one of those Bunders is running for state senator over in Claiborne County.
Yeah.
They'll probably get elected there, the way things are going. If you're a great thief, you can get votes.
Yeah.
But uh, Jeff Morrow signed 2 documents, a pre-order and a purchase order, or a request, and then a purchase order. Then he signed a check. 3 documents he signed during all that embezzlement, and he's the one that got a kickback from the school system for helping them do that.
You mean a pay raise?
Well, yeah, kickback, a payoff,
Let
money on the table,
let me ask you something.
And Jeff Morrow, when Jerry Chattel dug this up and started to the DA's office with it, Jeff Morrow passed him on the interstate, beat him over there, and slammed all them documents down in front of Paul Phillips and said, look at the gangsterism we got going on here. And Paul Phillips was too stupid to sit there and see that it was Jeff Morrow's signature on every one of them documents. That they couldn't have done it without him.
Let me ask you something. I tried to explain. I didn't try. I didn't know enough to do any explaining. Would you kind of enlighten Mr. Slusher about the flipping group?
Oh, there's a group out of Texas called the Flippin' Group that's owned by a guy by the name of Flip Flippin', and I swear I kid you not.
It's
Now,
real.
the face they use to promote their company is the head football coach at the University of Texas. Now, when you try to find out what they're teaching, and Poston said on TV a couple weeks ago that they've already
Wait a minute, Jerry. Tell him what they do first. What kind of contract?
$200,000 and it's an ongoing project. They teach leadership. That's all. Now, Poston tried to say, oh, it's been a big success. I asked him what parameters or what test did you give to arrive at that conclusion since it's an ongoing program? How do you know it's a success? What test tells you that? Now, we got PhDs down there sitting on their big fat butts. We got master's degrees all over the school system. We got them tweener degrees between a master's and a doctorate called EDS degrees. It's all about leadership. Are you telling me we don't have one person in this county that can teach leadership? We have to send that money to Flippin in Texas? I mean, now, this same bunch, these thieves down at the central school and the school board, sent a request by unanimous vote of the school board for a 10 cent on the dollar property tax increase. Now, I ask you, what was the short? How much money were you short? $670,000. Now that's the exact amount they spent on that new central office building.
That they admit to.
Now, he said, I said, oh, why, you know, why don't you cut somebody? You've lost 129 students from last year. That should cut four or five teachers. And did you know we have 15 paid assistant principals in our school system?
How many schools we got?
Paid assistant principals.
How many schools do they service?
Well, I don't know, you got those Jellicoe, elementary, middle schools. Well, Pollitt's down to two schools now. We
Yeah.
lost our high school to the central group. We only have two high schools in the county. But anyway, now, here's the icing on the cake. I've been told that I stick my nose where it don't belong. But they take my money from me and play these games with it, so everything's my business that they do. But the icing on the cake is they have 4.2 million in reserve. Cash that they're sitting on down there, and they have a shortfall. They come up short. They can't come up with 670,000 out of that 4.2 million and balance their budget and not have to ask for a tax increase.
Well, that would kind of tide us over, so hopefully we'll have a little more economic activity and a little more favorable job picture next year. Hopefully, I mean, then you stave off a price increase for better times. I thought that's what a reserve fund was for.
Exactly. It's four times like this when the economy's crashing, when we're in the middle of a depression. The government refers to it as a recession.
It's because they ain't none of them having a hard time.
Not 8.2, it's more like 15 or 16%. Unemployment and inflation is higher than it ever was under Roosevelt in the 1930s. And it's a lot worse. See, they removed food,
Yeah, they don't
fuel,
count
fuels,
energy and
everything,
food.
all this from the inflation index, so it doesn't reflect anything but used computers.
Let, Hazel Valley, let me add something to what you said about the reserve now, and I'm not really in disagreement with you. The school system is required to hold a 3% unrestricted reserve. Now, that means they can't go against it. What I'm concerned about on that reserve is the excess of the reserve.
Mm-hmm.
That does not apply to the state law. They can use that.
That's what he's saying.
Their reserve is higher than what the state requires.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They've been bragging about that.
Now what,
And they still ask for 10%.
and in my
When
opinion,
you got 15 paid assistant principals. You got an athletic director we don't need. We didn't have one till 2 or 3 years ago. And how long time for 100 years without one? You know, and you can't tell me they cannot cut back. And when you ask them to allow an independent group like Ron, R.L. Henson, myself, you, to go and take an independent look at the budget and tell them where they could actually balance their budget, they won't let you do it.
Well, let me point out one other thing, Hazel Valley. Part of what they're requesting is a 10% increase for workman's comp. What's going on there? I thought that we had supervisors that looked at safety, that followed OSHA. We've got a safety inspector for the school, or I'm not sure what it's called. And a 10% increase in workman's comp is unconscionable. Somebody is not guarding the ship. I know that people
Well,
can.
I can tell you exactly what the problem is there. These people are suffering from post-battle fatigue syndrome, or whatever they call it, because they will not permit discipline in the schools, and a teacher has to sit up there and dodge spitballs and bullets all day, and
Razors, they still use razors.
razors, and and they're a nervous wreck. You know, I can understand. You know, if the sound of sirens and gunfire causes a city employee down here to file for workman's comp, and he's a police officer, because loud noises detracting, causing.
What about a man working the rock where he got chalk poisoning?
You know, I'll tell you what, when the government, you know, in a way, you have to look at these people as entrepreneurs. You know, it's like
Oh, there,
there's a
man.
carrot out there in front of that mule, or donkey, he'll try to get to it and move that wagon or that load. And but we hold the carrot. We don't make them pull a load to get the carrots. You know, when we hang these carrots out there for these freebies for these people, you know, they're entrepreneurial. They figure out how to go get it.
Hazel Valley, I agree with you, and let me change a
I'm
little.
gonna get off here and let y'all
Oh, okay.
discuss further. If I have anything else to offer, I'll call back.
We might ain't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'd like to talk about, we got an audit recently, and the scandal that went on with the school board was a major topic in that audit. And the comptroller had a lot of findings.
Mhm.
And it was the worst audit I've ever seen. And I've been through a lot of audits. I was in a position where I got audited every year. And I'm not going to say that I had a perfect audit. Audits are designed to find
Probably.
problems.
Mhm.
And I had to take those problems when I got them before my board and explain to them what happened, why it happened, and what I'm going to do to see it never happens again. And I took it serious because they'd have fired me if I hadn't done it. The most recent audit, a copy was sent to all the county commissioners and the mayor. And as I say, most of it was the Martin Bundren situation. One question came from one county commissioner.
Yeah.
He got a answer to the question, and I read it in the audit, and it's not what the auditor said, but he said the auditor agreed with him. The auditor did not agree with him. And why didn't they go over those items? The commissioners are the overseers of this county.
Well, they do all that in committee and then they just go ratify it in public.
And we've got a chief administrative officer called the mayor. I heard nothing from him. And I walked away from that meeting. I said, well, I guess the audit's over. And you know, on the Martin Bundren affair,
Now, you didn't mean to say that, did you?
No.
That was one of those Freudian slips.
Freudian slip.
Yeah.
The everything that they did, including the transcript, had to go through the finance office
Yeah.
because the finance office pays on a valid transcript.
Mhm.
Where I worked, we took no third-party transcripts. They had to come directly from the university or the college or wherever the transcript was generated, and it came directly to payroll. It never came to the superintendent to payroll because things can happen,
Yeah.
and they did.
Mhm.
And it was things like that, purchases cut, being paid the very next day after the purchase order's cut. Um, you take one look at that and you kind of wonder what's going on, and it all goes through the finance office. But not one word other than one question from one commissioner was said about that audit in the county commission meeting.
Well, I've got to say a few words about Digger Wilson. Do you know Digger Wilson?
Yeah.
Digger is a propane man. He's the guy Hank Hill calls when he's got a question about propane. He's down there in the middle of Sawmill Holler, sells propane. He's got his summer stock, and you think you don't need propane in the summer, that you can run your refrigerator on it, or your grill, or your whole campsite. 5625444, Digger's got you covered. Just like Vitacare, in case you get out there fishing and your grill falls on you or something, when you need a ride to the hospital. They're independently owned. They're a private operation. They make a profit and provide a good service, and when they quit satisfying their customers, they'll be out of business, and they don't come to the county for a handout. If you need a ride to the hospital or any sort of a medical transport, you need to call Vital Care, 562-9370, and they'll take care of you. They absolutely will.
Well, you just hit on a subject that
I figured it would.
I mean
I was
is
kind of leading you into that subject.
is the ambulance service. Do you know at one time this county had the finest ambulance service in the state of
I
Tennessee?
guess it did. And I'm going to say something else. You may disagree. The ambulance director takes a lot of heat, and I guess he deserves some of it. But he ain't got nothing to work with either.
Bingo. When you look at their vehicles and they're buying used vehicles to run an ambulance service, when people's lives depend on that, that's wrong. And I can look at John Bond's ambulances and they're all new.
Well, don't you think that we ought to be getting paid for an ambulance franchise rather than having to provide money to support one?
County Commission says they're not going to touch it.
Well, that makes sense. Everybody's got a relative somewhere. Let me tell you something I heard down there, and I know we're not taking a lot of calls right now because Mr. Fletcher's got a whole lot he wants to say, and we'll take one or two more, but just be patient. We're not going to do it right now. I was down there at that workshop, and they proposed some sort of a scheme or plan or program to put solar panels on the top of the public buildings, and we're supposed to get rich off of that. I told you that this year, them fools told you that there incubator didn't cost you money. I'm also, these fools, them fools would probably, I'd like to speak for the other fools too. They'd probably inform you to stay away from this your solar panel thing, because there's something ain't right about that.
Well, the solar panel industry that was government funded, most of them went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I've had solar panels on my house. I never could get them to work. We had solar panels at the college. We never could get them to work. I had friends that ordered solar panels. They could never get them to work. It's a very, very iffy proposition.
Well, you have to put them in the sunshine and try it in the daytime. That's a little bit of a limitation, but the rest of the story is it's just a known fact that you don't recoup, you can only expect, if you had the best setup and most efficient system, money to buy, and everything went perfect, it would take you a minimum of 20 years to recoup your investment. Yet, my understanding is somebody's making so much money at this, they're gonna pay us for roof space. I didn't understand it. I admit I didn't understand it. There's something fishy about that. It smells like a lighthouse hotel to me.
You know, getting back to the ambulance service.
Yeah, back to the meanwhile, back at the ambulance service.
I don't have a lot of disagreement with the director. He's well qualified. He was a department head at Roane State, and you don't get in those positions unless you've got your
I agree.
ship
I
together.
agree with you.
But he came before the county commission begging for a piece of equipment that would let him transport up to 400 pound people downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
This causes workman's comp.
Yep.
And he told the county commission this. He said, our people get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
They refuse to fund that piece of equipment.
Well, I've got another little piece of information for you. When are we going to get our handicap lift out at the Money Hole Park Swimming Beach? Ain't we going to have one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought we would. They're about $500,000, I'd say.
It's a law.
Yeah, I know, and they've got a lot of improvement to do. And the thing about it is, they're gonna have to be able to pick them people up out of the wheelchair and set them down in the mud, and then get them back out and put them back in the wheelchair. And how they gonna get the mud off of them? Now the water finally got up to where you can swim on the beach out there, just recently.
Oh, I'm playing hopscotch on you, Ronnie.
Just hopscotch how you want to.
I'm coming back to audit criticisms.
Okay.
One of the audit criticisms, and it pointed out 2 offices that did not have separation of duties. In other words, I guess, just as an example, maybe 2 people working out of the same cash drawer.
Mm-hmm.
A no-no, because you cannot assign responsibility if money gets missing or whatever. There's
You
no
have to
way.
shoot both of them. That's what we need to do.
There's no way possible. And the remark at the county commission is, oh, we get that every year, and said, we just don't have the people to do it. Go down to the county courthouse someday and see whether they've got the people to do it. If you've got 2 people, you can have internal control. And there is no need to cross into another person's business that they're contracting with. And I'll guarantee you, if it can happen, it's gonna happen, and there's gonna be a big sum of money missing one of these days, and they will not be able to assign responsibility for that. It's not a shortage of staff. It's simply that the director of finance, who he is charged by law, has not gone over and trained those people how to separate their duties in office. Frankly, they ought to know how, but he is the one designated.
Well, I have been told, and I don't know, but I've been told by more than one source that we have a much bigger staff on our financial department than they have in much bigger counties.
14 to 15. And you look at the salaries, and you would expect to pay a person with a college degree who is a true accountant a decent salary. But those salaries for people that are essentially in off the street of $40,000 plus, they're overpaid.
No, I can understand your opinion.
I was a CFO of a college, and we never paid our people like that. If
Well,
we had a
no,
person with a degree and a department head, we paid them.
You were kind of working with quasi-government money. This is real government money down here. You had that insulator there. I mean, you couldn't just send for more when you needed it. You had to go through some more people.
I hope you're being facetious.
Well, no,
we had to account for every
I don't
penny
even know
we
what
had.
facetious means. We don't use words like that here, buddy. I want to tell you folks something. Mr. Slusher's going to be on the county cafe right after this goes off. We're just gonna change the tablecloth, and he'll be sitting here then. You can jump him then if you want to. Better listen to him, he knows what he's talking about.
I had a colonoscopy today, so I'm ready to talk.
Does that make you talk?
It does me.
Okay.
Hey, we talked a little bit about overstaffing in the finance office, and frankly, and I've looked at it, frankly, in my opinion, that office could be reduced to about 6 people. That's what they need. Sure, they were gonna have to work a little bit harder, but it could be reduced to 6. That means that some of these offices that they serve may have to pick up a few little extra duties, but you know, when you spread the work, it's not gonna have that much of an impact.
Well, I don't know how many people it takes to count a deficit anyway.
You're being facetious.
Oh, there it is, that word. I'm glad Bob ain't here. He'd be plumb insulted with them kind of words.
And one other statement I'd like to make. You know, in general in our county, our constitutional officers, by and large, do a decent job. I don't have much complaint. And I'm sure, and this hasn't been done, I'm sure that if you went to them and pleaded your case, which the mayor and the finance officer should do, pleaded your case about the situation we're in with the budget, that they'd be willing to cut 10%.
I think we need to organize an Occupy Jacksboro movement. Let me do a couple more commercials, and then, if you don't care, we'll take a few quick calls, and if you got something else you want to say, we'll do that first, just to figure out. Ridge Runner Trucking, 871-2410, you know about Ridge Runner, they good, they professional, they haul big stuff, they'll haul mulch, gravel, got them big old dump trucks, and they know how to use them. 871-2410, and just in case your dump truck breaks down, or your tractor, or your lawnmower, or anything, you go to Napa Auto Parts down there across from IGA. 562-9406 or 562-2629. You can get an oil change. Everything it takes to change the oil in your car for $17.99. It's the cheapest place in town. Go down there to Napa. They professionals. They know how to do business.
Now, where are they located?
Across from the IGA.
Okay, I'm
You know,
going.
it used to be Woodson's.
I'm going.
You do that. They're good people. They Bradley, some of them. UGG TV.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Howdy, sir.
Mr. Slusher, I want to say I appreciate you taking your stand in the presentation you made at the meeting that night.
Thank you.
I want to say something here, and I want to say it kind of way to where I protect myself to say things politically correct. And
You're going to talk about offshore.
Y'all are speaking politically correct when you're talking about our finance director. I was informed and told to look at things that you don't see. And this person, let me put it this way, this person was present when Dr. Martin stood up and made the request to raise Mr. Marlowe's salary.
I was there.
Okay, now, when he made the request to raise Mr. Martin's salary, this gentleman's telling me this, and that's why I'm using this in a politically correct manner. If you would have noticed Mr. Marlowe's reaction, he didn't crack a smile, he didn't look surprised, he didn't jump up, and if anyone tells someone that they're going to get a $16,000 increase in their salary, they would show a certain amount of excitement if they were not already aware of what the situation was. You follow me? It's what we don't see, or we see it, but it don't ring a bell. Now, if you're sitting there and all of a sudden somebody proposes you a $16,000 salary increase per year from then on, you're going to get a little excited. Now, one of the questions are...
Not if you got more money to burn.
One of those questions is, why did Mr. Martin propose this increase in Mr. Marlowe's salary? Did he do it out of the goodness of his heart or whatever? But after the fact of this happened, then Mr. Martin gets caught with his finger in the till. Okay? Now, what you all have talked about here, you've tiptoed all the way around it, but you've never used the word conspiracy.
know anything that's illegal going on. It's a conspiracy. All right? Now,
Now,
you
we
already
don't,
stated here that this
I'm back to
person
facetious on that.
Excuse me?
I'm back to facetious on that. That's one of them big words I just assume not know about.
Okay. But, just like Hazel Valley stated, this stuff has to come through Mr. Marlowe's office. Thus, he knew, had to know, or else he's incompetent. He had to know what was going on. And this person was kind of telling me that if Mr. Marlowe already knew and he had presented this to Mr. Martin, seems to me like there could have been some sort of a deal worked out there that Mr. Martin make this proposal to get Mr. Marlowe to, I don't want to get too deep in this, but to stop and do some thinking. If you follow this thing back, there was a reason for Mr. Martin to make this proposal. Mr. Marlowe should have
It's
been
because
pretty
of-
excited if he didn't already know what was going on here.
It's because he was doing such an excellent job, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course. But let me show you something. Some people call, there's all sorts of ways you could look at this thing. You could look at it, and I'm not saying so, but you could look at it that Mr. Marlowe already knew, and he used that dirty word, something about mail. And thus, he has got a $16,000 salary increase from now till forever. And I'm sure the people out there are listening to
Nothing
it
like,
right now.
I've got complete and total confidence in all our public officials, and I don't think anything like that has ever even been considered. I mean, it just don't happen. This is Campbell County.
Yep.
We straight shooters here, buddy.
That's
You're
right.
on the wrong track. I have to stand up for our elected officials.
And I'm gonna have to use that word facetious then.
Let me,
Go ahead, sir.
let me add one thing.
Okay.
Mr. Martin, or Dr. Martin, maybe he lost his degree, I don't know.
And he lost his money because he couldn't afford a lawyer.
He had to have authorization from the school board to do this.
Well, there's a lot of people who knew about this thing.
Not that, not to propose a
To
suggestion.
to transfer money from the school system to the
Yeah, he
county.
did, but he didn't have to have authorization to suggest it and get the ball rolling.
No,
Okay.
but some
Well, he
did,
didn't transfer any, did he? He just said he had the money, they could,
to my knowledge, they transferred.
did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in order to do that, he had to have sanctions from the school board. When did those sanctions occur?
Well,
That's why I didn't think that it happened.
In the public?
okay, this is where I'm coming from, gentlemen. One person can't do this stuff alone. It takes other people. And Mr. Chadwell pulled a brick out of the wall here on this thing, and that was fixing, if they hadn't done it the way Hazel Valley stated, if they had followed this thing on through, and if it had all been brought out in public, there'd been a lot of heads rolled. There'd been a lot of embarrassment in this thing. And the way local politics works, from what I've seen, and it's hard for me to grasp the thing anymore, but it seems to me like a large percentage of our people are corrupt. They're just flat out crooks is what they are.
It's just the average citizen, our officials are all upright and best of money you can buy.
Well, the people who are around and know about this, there's a lot of people knew about this thing, but they could not say nothing because their job is on the line. These people will lose the bread off their table.
That's right.
If they define.
We don't have a lot of whistleblower protection.
What do you think would happen to one of those 7 commissioners if they took an action against the school board?
Oh my goodness.
They might lose their bus route or their wife's job or their
I
retirement.
mean, you talk about being held hostage.
Yeah, there would be repercussions, and they would be severe. Let me put it this way. The amount of force applied to those people would be whatever's necessary to control them.
Yes, sir.
What would be done.
They just need one more for the swing vote, don't they?
Gentlemen,
Thank you.
there's a lot of things that we could go into and discuss, but like I say, I appreciate it. And the citizens, let me make one other comment. A gentleman showed me something today that I hadn't thought very much about. I'm a little slow on this stuff. But he stated that this sales tax thing on the next election also to scare the people. This part right here on this property tax, they'll wolf the citizens into voting for the sales tax, and then afterwards they'll come back and hit them with the property tax also.
Probably.
Good possibility. Gentlemen, something to think about, and like I say, I appreciate your all's time and your show. You all have a good night. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
I think we got room for one more call, and then we'll have a closing statement from Dr. Slusher. Ag TV,
Howdy, Ronnie, how you doing?
pretty good.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to call in and tell Mr. Slusher how much appreciation I have for him, and I just wanted to thank him for what he's done. In all honesty, I'm really happy that you're working towards the better for the county.
Let me make a comment on that. And I appreciate your comments. I'm rather bashful about taking comments. I do the best I can. And I've told Ronnie this. It's not that I can't pay the tax increase. I'm not gonna sit here and tell a lie that it's gonna break me, it's gonna do this, it's gonna do
It's gonna
that.
hurt some people. Bad.
I can do it. But you know, the Bible states there will always be the poor. And history has borne that out.
Yes, that is true, sir.
And the thing that bothers me is we're supposed to help the poor, not run them out of their homes.
Exactly. I mean, if the poor had, um, I myself am a poor person, and if we had more support and more help, we'd be making it just like some of these higher class people in the county. And it really bothers me to see that our county isn't looking towards the poor people, that they're just looking and saying, oh, hey, there's people out there who can pay this. I don't like that.
We need jobs. We need people that care about us. We need commissioners that stand up. We need commissioners that ask questions.
We've got commissioners that love poor people because they're making more of them every few days.
You know, a lot of commissioners, and I will say this generally, that the main reason they run for office is to get the health benefits, which is true. They do get health benefits.
And in all honesty, yeah, that's all they're doing it for. And I've seen so many crooked commissioners and such in this town and in the government around here that it ain't right. I mean, we really do need help.
I would make this statement that if I were a commissioner, and I'm not gonna run, because I feel that I can do things that are more effective other than being a commissioner. But if I were being a commissioner, I would refuse to take one dime from this county. I would refuse their health insurance and donate it back to this county. And I would hope the rest of the commissioners would do it too. We need to,
I would even hope that they would take a pay cut or something, just
Take-
something small
They don't
for an
make
entire
that
year,
much.
and that would really help out.
Most politicians are motivated by power and favors.
Yeah.
That's their payday. It's not, they don't make that much, not on the top of the table anyway.
and pressure from the people that control them.
Now, I do have one more thing to say before y'all get off air. Mr. Rick Gillum, I've seen his web show, and I talked to him a couple days ago, and I told him that his address that he gave out on your TV.
That's right, that's what I was gonna say. What's the correct address? I like never found it.
Yes, the correct address for it is Rick Gillum TV, like you announced, and after that comes Plain Truth, and Plain is spelled Plane.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's .blogspot.com.
Blogspot or
Yes,
Ustream?
Blogspot.com.
Okay. Went through Blogspot to Ustream.
Alrighty, and I'll just say it because I like his show, but it comes on tomorrow between 7 and 8 o'clock.
Okay.
I really hope people call in this week.
Thank you.
Alrighty,
See
y'all
you.
have a good night.
You too. We're gonna get off here in just a minute. I don't know how long that minute's gonna be, but when we leave, we appreciate you watching. Thank Mr. Slusher for coming in. We have got Fred coming up shortly, but there'll be a little delay because they're gonna use this same room, and I gotta get my junk out of here. And somebody's calling me. They're calling you. I got that same ringtone.
It's not Fred.
Persistent, ain't they? You got anything else you want to say, Mr. Jim?
I would like to say, you know, we've discussed problems tonight. But I would like to say, I was gone from this area for 30 years. I was raised in Anderson County, and I consider Campbell County my home, just as well as I do Anderson County. We've got wonderful people in this county. We have a lot of people that don't have the best interest at heart of our county. They run for offices. They don't know what they're doing. Sure, there's a learning curve, but how long should that learning curve be? Our present commissioners have been in office right at 2 years. Our mayor has now been in office 4 years. And when does the learning curve end and the action begin?
Well, I've kind of been opposed to the action they already learned. They started out expecting to raise taxes and they just keep shooting at the same goal.
That will make 2 tax increases in 3 years.
They've shot for 5.
Yeah,
I'm about out of money. In fact, I'm way out of money. I'm like Tammy Faye was. I'm down to my last 37,000. You remember Tammy Faye? Her and Jim got busted. They were down to their last $37,000. And them people was sending them $10 and their Social Security check had never seen $37,000 in one pile.
last time I saw him, he was selling flashlights.
Yeah, you know, me and Bob tried to get this one of them who's that there Indian guy that's a preacher? He was getting him a new.
Well, Benny Hinn,
Yeah, he was getting him a new airplane. We weren't going to do it. We started trying to raise. All we needed to raise was we needed 6,000 people to send us $1,000 apiece, and we'd get us some $6 million airplanes. Then all we'd have to do, we find somebody to fly it and gas it up for us. And we actually, Bob had a lady tried to contribute $1,000. She didn't know it was a joke, and he thanked her and encouraged her and really appreciated her. And I wish he'd have took the money. I don't know. We're about ready. We're going to go here in just a minute. Thank you, folks. Don't forget our sponsors and don't hold it against them. We appreciate you watching. Bob should be back next week. He just as soon as he gets enough money to make bail. I don't know. We're off. No, we're not. We're not. Wait a minute. We're still on the internet, so don't insult your mama or nothing. Thought that had a cushion in it.
Howdy.